Notre Dame is an 8.5-point underdog in this game. We have watched both of these teams traverse their way through the college football playoff. We did see someone play with Ohio State. Yes, the Texas score was a 14-point margin at the end, but it was a very close game. Texas was a 1.5 feet away from tying it up. What do we think is going to happen here?
I think Ohio State's going to win by 1 million.
Like Georgia TCU?
I think it's going to be 38-17 or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's not the case. It's been a fun tournament. Like, I want it to end with a classic, but I do realize that's possible. I understand that's possible. I think it's going to be a test of Notre Dame's talent. Like, we've said all along that Marcus Freeman has made Notre Dame more talented than Brian Kelly ever did. We're going to find out just how talented.
Yeah. I just lost respect from some people because I'm being lazy.
You're being lazy by picking a result that is entirely possible?
I don't know. Like, I've been so high on Notre Dame all year. And, like, I thought I earned some equity with these people.
No, nobody ever remembers the nice things you say. They're
I just want to be honest about how I feel. And like, listen, it's like lazy as hell to call a blowout in this game. The spread is 2 scores, pal. Like, it's
the
not
person
like
calling you. The person calling you lazy also calls themselves a motivational business banker. So
okay, that's right.
I don't think you really need to take that too seriously.
I want to take his Jordan Belfort instructional how to get rich classes. I don't know. I don't know how Notre Dame's going to score a lot.
I don't know how Notre Dame's going to score a lot either, but is it possible that Ohio State doesn't score a lot? Is there a world where Ohio State scores between 17 and 24?
Yeah, of course.
That's the thing. I think it may be hard to score that many on Notre Dame. I would have said the same thing about Oregon, and they did that.
What's today, Monday? We're going to do tinfoil hat Monday.
Okay, go for it.
You know, on the second drive of the game, of the Ohio State-Texas game, when Will Howard threw that pass to Jeremiah Smith at the goal line, that was just like 2 inches too tall, and like Jeremiah went up and got it. And like
the one where they saw that Smith was matched up on a safety, everybody's eyes lit up, and it was like, okay, we're going deep. Let's go.
If you would have caught that, and Ohio State would have gone up 14-0. I think that game would have been different. Here's more tinfoil hat. I think if Ohio State wouldn't have shot itself in the foot on 8 different drives, including the third drive when they were in Texas territory, where Trey Henderson smacked somebody in the face and got a 15-yard penalty, and they ended up punting instead of going up 10 or 14-0, that would have been a very different game. And I'm not trying to take away from what Texas did, but I think Texas played about as great or perfect of a game as they possibly could. And like Ohio State got the 28. And I know one was a defensive touchdown, but Ohio State had the ball like 8 drives in a row and did not score. And like, I just don't know if Ohio State is going to do that again. And like, I watched Notre Dame's offense for the majority of the game, and like Ohio State's defense is better than Penn State's, and they have just better players, dude. Like, I don't know. Like, maybe I'll be wrong and Notre Dame will win the game.
The question is, like, we saw Jack Sawyer abuse Cam Williams on that scoop and score play. Like, Tosh Baker is filling in for Anthony Knapp. And we saw him, Deni Dennis Sutton did the same thing to him on that play where they crushed Angeli. And he fumbled. And lucky for Notre Dame, they got it back.
Here's where...
So that's the thing you're worried. Like, does Jack Sawyer or JT Tuimoloau do that to the backup left tackle?
Here's the thing, too. Like, so Texas came into the Ohio State game with, I think, the number one statistically, their number one defense in the country. And like, I thought to myself, well, when you think about who Texas played this year, They got Florida when DJ Lagway was hurt. They played Michigan. We turned out to find out what that was. They didn't have a tough SEC schedule. The Georgia losses, they played very well, but Georgia's offense, obviously, we found out is very flawed. That I thought that this would be the first time that they had faced a team that possessed the skill talent that Ohio State did, and that we would find out something that wasn't real in the stats. And actually, Texas turned out to be that those numbers were real. Like, they were actually a very good team and a very good defense. Like, when I look at Notre Dame's path to the national championship, part of the reason why I picked that path is because I knew beyond the shadow of a doubt that Notre Dame's defense was better than the offenses that they were facing, including Georgia's. Because, like, I don't know why everybody was so late to identify this, but Georgia's offense sucked this year. Okay. And when I say sucked, I mean,
and we'll be talking about Carson Beck to Miami very shortly.
We are. We're going to talk about it. But, like, Notre Dame's path here, have they faced an offense that possesses even one Jeremiah Smith? Or one Carnell Tate, or one Emeka Egbuka, or one Trey Henderson, or one Quinshad Judkins, or one G. Scott. Like, I just think that they're playing against an animal they have not played this year. And maybe I'll be wrong, and Notre Dame will show me that they are, in fact, elite. But their path, like, when you look at Ohio State's path to this game, and you look at Notre Dame's path to this game, and Notre Dame's path wasn't easy by any stretch. But Ohio State's path of Tennessee, Oregon, Texas is by far the hardest path to this game. And Ohio State,
the hardest path anyone could have taken to this game.
And, like, you know, at the risk of sounding like a Ohio State homer, they played a bad game against Texas. This is the first. It's one thing to say Ohio State found itself, it's kicking the crap out of everybody, no one's going to play with them. Like, Ohio State won in spite of playing poorly. And, like, you might say Texas's defense did that. Maybe it's so, but I thought all the penalties was just a poor play. They had a ton of offensive penalties in critical scenarios that ended drives, and I think you can't discount that. If they play a clean football game, they're going to score 30 points. Okay? They're going to. I don't think Notre Dame can score 25. Their team total, if you believe that, go ahead. Their team total right now, I think, is 17. Go hit it. But you know what? Texas's was 23, and I thought that was like the giveaway of the century, and it turned out to be the case. It would have lost had they scored at the end and gone to overtime maybe, but it didn't lose. Everybody is concerned with Jeremiah Smith and the quarterbacks and all this stuff, and it's like the number one thing in this game is Ohio State's defense. It has been the entire playoff, and it will continue to be. And as we get blinded by how exciting offenses are, like, Ohio State's defense is the nastiest unit in the playoff, period. And Notre Dame's offense, frankly, struggled quite a bit for a large portion of the game against a team that is not nearly as good on defense.
Busy mornings, late nights, working through lunch. Life does not always leave room for a balanced, complete meal. That is where Huel comes in. This podcast is sponsored by Huel. This is the Huel Black Edition right here. 35 grams of protein, 7 grams of fiber, 27 vitamins and minerals in this bottle right here. If I need breakfast and I don't have time to cook anything, this is perfect for me. My wife grabs them on her way out the door for lunches at work. They are spectacular. No more skip meals or unfulfilling snacks. Huel makes it easy with nutrition that fits into your life. And right now you can try it for 15% off with the code Staples15 at Huel.com. That's Huel.com. Staples15 is your code for 15% off.
So you want to know how I got to my pick? It's not a lazy. That's why I think that.
Well, the guy who's calling your pick lazy is calling for a 10-point Ohio State win. So guess what? You're both saying the Buckeyes are going to cover. It's not really that.
He said I wasn't paying attention to what he said.
Oh, I was. Yeah.
Oh, so like the
motivational business banker thinks it's a 10-point game. So you're both saying they're going to cover. How lazy is that?
So
here's a non-lazy pick.
So hear yours. Yeah.
Ohio State's going to win the national championship, but Notre Dame is going to cover in this game.
Interesting.
Some weird shit's going to happen.
You know what? And like, this is the thing too. And that's why I asked you about my picks are always based on personnel. Mm-hmm. And I know sometimes sports are deeper than that. And I think that, like, from a mental toughness standpoint, Ohio State in the 4 years prior, and part of the reason why Ryan Day has gotten so much shit as Ohio State's coach is that they haven't shown a consistent ability to get punched in the mouth by another really good team late in the game and still win. Like Ohio State has been in the fourth quarter of games, like Oregon earlier this year, each of the last 4 Michigan games, all those things. And every time they get punched in the mouth in a close game after playing 3 quarters with a very good opponent, they end up losing. And this is the first time, the Texas game is the first time, I think, in, maybe since Penn State this year, if you want to count that, but in a high leverage moment where Ohio State took punches in the fourth quarter and then ended up winning a game. So, like, on one hand, I feel like Notre Dame fans are like, oh, shit, okay, yeah, well, Ohio State.
Well, and Notre Dame is going to deliver punches.
For sure.
They're going to deliver punches. But Notre Dame, look, for this to happen, for what I said to happen, for Notre Dame to cover, and again, I still think Ohio State wins the game. For Notre Dame to cover here, they have got to force some turnovers. They've got to confuse Will Howard. Like, all of the things that Malik Zaire said about Will Howard, which I don't think are true, have to be true in this game. And then you got a shot. That's how Penn State had a shot. Remember, Penn State had an early pick 6. And that is why that was a one-possession game as late as it was. And they had a really good defense. Like, Notre Dame and Penn State, as you saw the other night, are pretty similar. I suspect this game plays out in a pretty similar fashion.
It's funny because the Texas game was probably motivation, or like if you're a Notre Dame fan and you watch the Ohio State Texas game, you might be like, great. Okay, so they're not just beating everybody by 100. They can be stopped, all these things. And it makes you probably feel good about Notre Dame's chances, right? Because Ohio State did play in a close competitive game that was like 1 yard away from maybe going to overtime. But then on the other hand, it's like that was the first time in like 5 years that Ohio State won a game like that. And it's like, if you want to talk about winning different ways, like at least Ohio State learned about itself that it doesn't have to be up by 24 in the third quarter to win a football game against a really good team. So even if Notre Dame is within 7 points in the fourth quarter, Ohio State just came off of a game where it didn't play well, was punched in the mouth, gave up a huge drive, but their defense won the game for them at the end. Like, it was a very big departure of how things had gone for Ohio State for a long period of the last 4 years. So that said, 38-17 is my pick.
All right. Yeah. 38-17 for you. And I'm going to say Ohio State wins it 21-17.
If Ohio State wins 21-17, they could lose. If that's the type of game it is.
They could. The Nebraska game. That's the Nebraska game.
Yeah. The Nebraska game was like an offensive line that...
Nebraska stinks compared to Notre Dame.
No, I know. But Ohio State, if you go look at the or the PFF grades from their offensive line in that game, it was like the worst of any offensive line.
I know.
It's not duplicatable. But what Texas did... Maybe it is. I'm like, listen, guys, just because I'm picking Ohio State to win 38-17 doesn't mean that's what's going to. I mean, I'm wrong all the time. I'm just telling you what my gut feeling is, that they're going to win the game comfortably.
It is not an outlandish prediction. What you made is not an outlandish prediction. My prediction is more outlandish than yours.
I think that yours is more unlikely to happen than mine.
We'll see. Because you think if what happens to cause that score happens, that Notre Dame wins, right?
I think that Notre Dame has probably, like, to me, like, I just got done saying that Ohio State won a game differently, but like in a 1-score game in the fourth quarter, like Notre Dame has illustrated an incredible ability to close this year in ways
and the reason I didn't go as far as saying I think Notre Dame wins outright is I still think Ohio State having better players shines through in the end, which is what happened against Penn State this year.
That, like, I always lean towards that. Did I pick SMU to beat Penn State? No. Did I pick up any? Which game? Go back and if you're like upset about this pick, what game did I ignore personnel in?
There's never been one.
It's my North Star, guys. It's still there. Now, it might be harder to choose personnel now than it used to be. and maybe it's a little bit harder now. Notre Dame's much better, but like Notre Dame's also like missing like the other thing too is like it's remarkable that that Notre Dame against Penn State was able to overcome injuries, but like they're beating the hell up too. Like they're not even at optimum strength.
Yeah, I mean Ohio State, like JT Tuimoloau hurt his ankle, but came back into the game. Like he's going to play in this game. He was effective when he came back too. So like Notre Dame is much more banged up than Ohio State right now. But we shall see. That's why they play the games.
Like their best pass rushers out now, and like their offensive line needs to get maybe reshuffled. And granted, they are getting back a player who was supposed to be their next Joe Alt, right? Like so, like that could be.
Yeah, Charles Jackson played right guard the other night, and filling in for Rocco Spindler.
And the fact that he's back is huge for
right. And I suspect if you want to put him at left tackle, since he was going to be your starting left tackle this year, you could do that. So there's some options there, but we'll find out.
Do you think that Notre Dame's going to be able to score more than 17 points, which is the spread, which is the team total?
Why do you think I picked that number in my choice?
I picked that number too. We picked the same number, but I'm saying, do you think there's a world where Notre Dame wins 34-30?
Yeah, there's a 34, but can they get to 24, 25? Yeah, but that's a somebody drops the ball and it bounces, like Ohio State fumbles and it bounces up to Notre Dame. Like those happen. You have those moments where Texas the other night had a couple of fumbles where it bounced back to them. And you knew it wasn't going to always do that. And it didn't at the end, because when Jack Sawyer hit Quinn Ewers, it bounced right to Jack Sawyer. Like all those things sort of balance out eventually. So
I know we have to talk about one more thing, Andy, but let's put this one up. I thought this was an interesting question. If Notre Dame wins, they will be the most surprising national champ since.
Ooh.
Was
Florida a surprising national champ in 2006 when they killed them killing Ohio State was a massive surprise to everyone.
Where were they ranked in the preseason that year, Andy? You would know this.
They were like a top 10-ish team. Auburn was supposed to be the best team in the SEC, and Auburn did beat Florida. That's the only loss Florida took that season. So I'm trying to think of any others.
Because it's been pretty easy to telegraph for 15 years.
Yeah. Like even the ones that weren't Alabama over the last few, like Florida State, that team was so stacked in 2013. There's no question they were.
The answer just not last year.
Yeah. River asks us, Clemson finally beating Alabama. No, because Clemson almost beat Alabama in the national title game the year before that.
It's last year, right?
It's last year. It's Michigan last year. But I don't think it was a surprise.
But it wasn't a shock.
By the time they got there. And they were good going into the season. They'd beaten Ohio State a couple of years in a row at that point. Like, I don't know. It's going to be, you got to go ways back. I mean, Tennessee in 1998 was a surprise because they were supposed to be in 99, the team that just dominated everybody. They were a year early, but they were a good team. Like, it wasn't like they weren't a top 10 team going into the season. So
you know what is funny to me though is that everybody gets super angry and mad about preseason rankings.
Justin White, 2010 Auburn.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. And like having covered a lot of the games throughout that season, like I remember I covered their game at Mississippi State on a Thursday night early in the season, and Cam had not blossomed into what Cam would blossom into later in the season. You knew he was good, but if you told me that night that this team's going to go undefeated, because I think at that point they'd already lived dangerously against Clemson. They almost lost to South Carolina at home. Like if you'd asked me that night when they beat Mississippi State in Starkville, will this team go undefeated? I said, absolutely no way. Would never happen. And they did.
Yeah.
So 2010 Auburn
would not have won a national championship in the 4-team era, right? Or the 12-team era.
No. Mm-mm. As good as Cam was, they didn't have the talent on the rest of the team. Like Nick Fairley was awesome on defense, but the rest of the team didn't have a lot of NFL players. So
everybody go watch Rudy. We'll repick the game on tomorrow's show. Bring tissues.
He was offsides.